Hi, welcome to grade 4, lesson 27. Our learning target for today is I can compare fractions greater than 1 by creating common numerators or denominators. So if you're ready, let's get started. Number 1, draw a tape diagram to model each comparison. Use greater than, less than, or equals to compare. Letter A, 2 3/4 and 2 7/8. Well, our whole numbers, 2's, are the same. So we're going to draw a tape diagram to represent our fractions. So the first tape diagram is going to represent 3/4. Okay, so 3/4 means I have 4 spaces. And I'm going to shade in 3 of them. All right, our next tape diagram has 7/8. So I'm going to cut this in half, cut these in half, and then cut them in half again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 7/8. I'm going to shade in 7 of them. Okay, so I have 7/8. Now, we can use common denominators. 4 is a factor of 8. So we can count fourths to eighths by we can convert the fourths to eighths by decomposing the 4 in to make eighths. So I could do that by dividing each of the fourths in half. Because 4 is a factor of 8, 4 times 2 is 8, and whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So I have 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 shaded out of 8. So 3/4 is equal to 6/8. So 6/8 is less than 7/8. So when we go to write this, 2 3/4 is less than 2 7/8. I decomposed my fourths into eighths. Let's go ahead and do letter B. Letter B, again, I see that my ones place, the whole numbers are the same. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my tape diagram. My tape diagram is going to represent, the first one is 2, 6. So I have 6 spaces. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So I have my 6 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need to shade in 2 of them. Okay. And my second tape diagram. Tape diagram represents 1/3. So I need 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3, and one of them is shaded. So I have 1 out of 3 is shaded. And I can use common denominators here. 3 is a factor of 6, so we can convert the thirds into 6 by decomposing each of these thirds to make 6. And I do that by cutting each of the thirds in half, because 3 times 2 is 6, and whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So my new fraction becomes 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 6. So 2/6 is equal to 1/3. They are representing the same amount. So my answer here is that they are equal. 2/6 decomposed, and 1/3 is equal to 2/6. Okay, let's move on to letter 2. Number 2, use an area model to make like units. Then use greater than, less than, or equals to compare. Okay, so I have 2 4/5 and 11/4. And the first thing that I have to do is first I need to convert 11/4 to a mixed number. So how many fourths are in 11? I have 4/4 and 8/4. I can't go to 12/4, that's too many. So that would give me 2 whole. And if I'm on 8, 9, 10, 11, and 3/4 left over. So 11 and 11/4 is equal to 2 3/4. So now we're going to use an area model to make like units because these denominators are not the same. So we're going to use an area model. So let me show you what we need to do. So we're going to make 2 rectangles. Oops, sorry about that. We're going to make 2 rectangles. And we're going to partition the first one to show 4/5. My second one is going to represent 3/4. So going back to the first one, we're going to partition this first one into fifths. We're going to use fifths, and we're going to partition it using vertical lines. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is 4. 4 sections are shaded out of 5. Okay, so that's my first. My second one represents 3/4. So now I'm going to show fourths, but I'm going to use horizontal lines to make like denominators. So I'm going to do 3/4 this way, horizontally. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 of the 4 have to be shaded. Okay, so there's my 3/4. Now, in order to make like denominators, I am going to draw the fourths horizontally, the lines that we drew here, onto my first area model. So here I had 3 lines, so I'm going to put those 3 lines over here. 1, 2, 3. So I put these 3 lines onto my 4/5, and now I'm going to put my 4/5 onto my 3/4. So I need 4 lines here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So now if you notice, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. I have 20 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. And I have 20 spaces. So now I have like denominators. So all I need to do now is to go ahead and count how many were shaded. Well, here I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 8, 12, 16. 16 are shaded out of 20. And on this one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 10, 15 are shaded out of 20. So I converted my area models so I had like denominators. And I can tell now that the 16/20 is larger than my 15/20. So my greater than sign goes in here. So that's how we use an area model to compare. All right, let's go ahead and do letter B. We're going to do that the same way. So we have 2 3/5 and 2 2/3. Now, since my whole numbers are already the same, we're going to go ahead and draw our area models. So we're going to do the area model representing 3/5 And then we have to draw the area model to represent 2/3. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We need to make like denominators. So we're going to first draw 3/5, and 3/5, I need 5 lines. I need 5 spaces, so I need 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are my 5, and I'm going to shade in 3. Okay, so I have 3 shaded. And then on my second one, I'm going to draw 2/3, but remember my lines here are going to go horizontally, so I need 1, 2. So those are horizontal lines, and I'm going to shade in 2 of the 3. Now, to make a common denominator, we are going to put the 2/3, the horizontal lines, onto my first area model. So it would look like this. And then I'm going to put my vertical lines from my 3/5 onto this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now if you count your area, your spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 10, 15, there are 15 spaces in our new area model. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 10, 15, there are 15 in this new area model. So you'll notice our common denominator is 15. So let's go back and count how many we had shaded. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 shaded out of 15. On this one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shaded. So my common denominator, and I find my new equivalent fractions. So 3/5 was equal to 9/15, and my 2/3 is equal to 10/15. And since 9 is smaller than 10, then we know that 2 and 3/5 is less than 2 and 2/3. That is how you use your area model to find common denominators. All right, let's move on to number 3. Number 3 says, compare each pair of fractions using greater than, less than, or equals to using any strategy. So we're going to compare by finding like denominators. And since both of these have the same number of ones, they're both 6, we can make like denominators using multiplication. So what I like to do is to find a common denominator that the two denominators have in common. So if I start with the smaller one and I count 2, 4, 6, 8, 2 is a factor of 8. So I rewrite this down here and I ask myself, what did I have to multiply 2 by to get to 8? Well, you have to multiply it by 4. And the rule says that whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So 1 times 4 is 4, and 2 times 4 is 8. So 1/2 becomes 4/8. And since 4/8 is greater than 3/8, then I can put in my greater than sign because 1/2 is greater than 3/8. Okay. Again, we're going to do letter B, same thing. We're going to rename each fraction using multiplication. In this one, again, my whole numbers are the same. I am going to rename each fraction using multiplication to have 6 change into the new denominator of 12. So let's see if I do that. We have 5, 6. How can I make my new denominator change into 12? Well, 6 times what number is 12? 2. And anything that you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So 5 times 2 is 10. 6 times 2 is 12. So 5/6 is equal to 10/12, and 10/12 is smaller than 11/12. So we have 7 and 5/6 is less than 7 and 11/12. Okay. And let's go ahead and do letter C. Again, we're going to use multiplication again. And in order to do this one, we're going to rename each fraction using multiplication to have this 5 change into the new denominator of 10, because 5 is a multiple of 10. So let's do it down here. Let's just stick with the fractions and 2/5. So how can I change 5 into 10? 5 10. It goes in twice. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. 5 times 2 is 10. I have a common denominator of 10. So now I just look at my fractions, and I know that 3 and 6/10, these two are equal, and 3 and 2/5 is equal to this. So I know that 6/10 is larger than 4/10. And let's go on to letter D, 2 and 2/5 and 2 and 8/15. I am going to rename, since my whole numbers are the same, I'm going to rename each fraction using multiplication to have 15 as our new denominator. 5, 10, 15. I know 5 does go into 15. So I'm going to have 2/5. Here's my 8/15. I want to know what did I do to the 5 to make it a 15? Multiplied it by 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. 2 times 3 is 6. So 2/5 is equal to 6/15, and 2 and 8/15. So I know that 6/15 is less than 8/15. And that's how you use a common denominator to compare fractions. I hope this helped you. Thanks for listening. Bye.